Hello there, and welcome to what if Qui Gon and Maul lived, but Anakin died. The arena at Naboo is supposed to settle things with speed and spectacle. It is not supposed to reroute a galaxy, but a single choice bends everything. Qui-Gon Jinn does not leave, Obi-Wan to stand alone. He stays, and the blade they throw up together is just enough confusion for Darth Maul to decide retreat is the cheaper prize. Maul shouts and vanishes into the smoke. The twin blades do not vanish the story the history books expect. Qui-Gon breathes. Obi-Wan does not kneel over his master's body because there is no body. A life that was about to end keeps going. Up above, in the chaos of the blockade and the starfighters, a different life ends. Anakin Skywalker's aircraft is a shell twisted into flame. He does not come down to cry for his mother. He dies with stars in his eyes. A bright, wasted boy who will never be a man in the histories that might have been. Two small divergences. One man kept, another taken. The force tilts, and everything that depends on a single pivot begins to fray. Qui-Gon returns to Coruscant with sand in his hair and a stubborn conviction in his chest. The Order expects a tired master, relieved and grateful. They are not ready for a storm. Qui-Gon arrives not as a spectator, but as a critic. He carries Naboo like a wound and a lesson. He speaks of the living force, spontaneity, compassion, the moral honesty of attachment that preserves life. He refuses the sterile attachment the temple favors. He asks whether a philosophy that forbids love from being named is useful when people are dying. He asks what happens when fear becomes doctrine. Obi-Wan listens. He had been a pupil who learned with simple faith. Now he finds himself aligned to a teacher who speaks in inconvenient, tender truth. A following forms, slowly. Younger knights, some more open, others restless with curiosity, lean into Qui-Gon's questions. Not everyone welcomed the change. Masters who build their authority on rigid doctrine feel something like danger when their assumptions are named. Mace Windu's jaw tightens. Yoda's eyes soften, but do not give answer. The council divides not just by politics, but by philosophy. Qui-Gon's survival is not merely biological, it becomes intellectual. He becomes that annoying presence at the council table who will not let anyone call the same things by the same names in sleep. Palpatine has long been patient. He keeps his plans in fold and waits for a hand that can be guided. In the original path, he counts on Anakin, the perfect knot of fear and promise, to be his leader. Anakin is gone here. The seat at the table is empty. At first, Palpatine adapts like a maestro, changing tempo. He elevates other instruments. He watches. He plays with Dooku, cultivates allies, whispers into their right ears. Then he opens a drawer he keeps for desperate days and pulls out a blade he thought related to memory. Darth Maul. The gangster disciple Maul had been shattered and hidden after his last defeat. Palpatine brings him back, scrapes and sharpens him, and gives him a job Anakin would have made easier. Be a weapon, a scar, an instrument built to wound the Jedi philosophically and professionally. Maul is dangerous in a different register. He is single-minded, brutal and cold. He lacks Anakin's human cracks, which means he will never be tempted by pity or grand promises in the same way. He will follow orders if they are clear and violent. This is both a strength and a frustration for the Sith Lord. Control over a solid blade is hard to bend into political theatre. Palpatine's plan mutates. The prophecy he had folded into his strategy, bring balance for a chosen one, becomes a hole in his strategy. He can still manufacture war. He can still sow chaos, but the elegant instrument of corruption, a tragic hero, does not exist. He must fight harder for each gain. Padme Amidala's life rearranges itself around absence. No Anakin waiting in the wings, no sudden marriage to a soldier with blood on his hands. She grieves, quietly. Her politics harden and deepen rather than scatter into private passion. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are not only figures at the edge of her life, they become trusted advisors and friends. She builds an anti-corruption front. She speaks with precious fury inside committee rooms. With Qui-Gon's moral clarity and Obi-Wan's even temper beside her, she crafts arguments not of spectacle, but of law. They push into procurement audits, into the shadows where contracts and favors bloom. Her presence reorders Palpatine's playbook again. He has to contend with a senator who can speak from the moral podium and who carries Jedi stature in her pocket. That is a threat he cannot simply erase with a speech. Padme is not naive. She knows the corridors, and she uses them. And she learns to lean on a Jedi who does not merely recite doctrine, but listens to the people he meets. Qui-Gon becomes more than counsel. He becomes a bridge between the Temple's theories and the Republic's messy realities. Qui-Gon's curiosity is literal. He sees patterns other people do not want to name. Sifo-Dyas' death catches his eye. A missing Jedi with a commission for clones is not the kind of thing a calm master ignores. Qui-Gon starts asking questions, and the questions do not stay in corridors. He pushes. Kamino appears faster than it should. Qui-Gon and a narrow team find the island planets in voices and chatter. He learns that an army was commissioned in secret. He learns about genetic templates and banking ledgers. He draws a single awful conclusion. Someone built an army without Senate knowledge and without Jedi oversight. Qui-Gon does not accept the clones at face value. He wants the story exposed. He wants the people who made the Order to stand and answer. When the Kaminoans answer with bureaucracy and denials, he pushes further. He brings evidence back. He speaks to the Council and to Padme, and he does not stop until auditors are signed. This is the turning point. In the old tale, the clones arrive as an answer. Here they arrive as an alarm bell. The Jedi cannot, in good conscience, take command of an army they did not authorize. That question, take command and refuse, becomes a Caesar's choice inside the Order. The Jedi are split. Qui-Gon argues against militarizing their creed. He says the clones are a symptom of fear and that leaning on them will only teach the Republic to trade law for weapons. Others argue practicalities. You cannot unmake a fleet of ships or deny a Senate that wants to protect itself. Mace Windu and his cohort insists on a controlled approach. Accept limited oversight so that the army can be disciplined under the Republic's authority. Qui-Gon replies with a living philosophy. The Force wants guardians, not generals. He asks for restraint and for civilian limits. The schism grows like a storm front. Younger Jedi, some inspired by Qui-Gon's humanism, line up with him. Old masters warily side with history and hard choices. Obi-Wan is pulled by stays near Qui-Gon. They share a common temper, compassion anchored in skill. The Republic splinters into small, uglier ways around this argument. Some systems demand the army be fielded now. Fear sells votes. Padme helps shepherd investigative committees and legal frameworks meant to keep the army tethered. Palpatine watches the fissures breathe. He praises both sides gently in public and sharpens his plots in private. He cannot depend on a single corrupted heart the way he intended. He must rely on broader rods. Palpatine invests in Maul, not as a tragic recruit but as an engineered wound. He instructs Maul in subtlety as well as hate. He places him in markets and underworld dens. He has Maul learn politics the hard way, through fear and rumor rather than rhetoric. Maul is trained to be a living provocation, strike where the Jedi are thin, ruin reputations, assassinate reputations as easily as people. Maul's style is not the soft seduction that toppled Anakin. It is blitz, terror, and a careful escalated insult. He wounds temples and councils alike, provokes scandals that bleed into politics. He unmasks incompetence and makes it spectacle. But Maul cannot easily become a tool of persuasion. He does not crave the throne. He craves chaos and purpose. Palpatine must restrain his blade and coax him with whispers and promises. The Sith relationship becomes a harsher apprenticeship and a more brittle dependency. War comes. It always does. Dooku's separatists still gather, fed in part by corporate greed and old resentments. Battles happen, planets burn, yet the central machinery of Palpatine's plan, militarize, crown, purge, does not fall into neat sequence. The clones operate under committees and auditors, with the Jedi a watched advisory rather than an unquestioned command. The conflict becomes a long, bitter attrition rather than a clean pivot. The Republic fights, but it does not so with public eyes and legal attachments. The clones behave as soldiers meant to follow orders, but are traced and recorded. This slows Palpatine's ability to centralize power. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan lead missions and emphasize rescue and reconciliation. They teach troopers to take prisoners, to gather testimony, to treat civilians as ends not obstacles. Anxiety is lower where he reaches, and soldiers come to respect techniques that value life. Palpatine escalates. He pushes Maul and Dooku to stunts that split attention, political assassinations, corporate collapses, horror shows that make Senate councils fail. But the public sees too much and asks too many questions. Pressure reshapes the Jedi. Some masters think Qui-Gon is wrong-headed or reckless. Others see him as necessary. A line hardens between a council that protects institutions and a new movement that defends people before doctrine. It is not clean. Families split, friendships strain, feuds turn private. Mace Windu's patience frays into open rebuke. He accuses Qui-Gon of making the Order soft and exposed. Qui-Gon accuses Windu of allowing the Order to become a civil servant of fear. Yoda listens and offers less verdict than he once would. He is not blind. He is not young. Obi-Wan finds himself bridging, teaching younglings the skills of restraint but also the courage to name what is wrong. His path here is not broken. It is complicated. He becomes a teacher who can see both sides. Younger knights who trained under Qui-Gon begin to use contact teams within refugee camps and diplomacy, not just lightsaber forms. The division matters because Palpatine cannot turn a single human scar into a burned empire anymore. He needs mass compliance or systemic confusion. He learns instead to work like a slowly corroding acid. Palpatine does have one weapon left: the clones and the mechanism of control. He still schemes for a moment where obedience will be a single switch. He essays the network and plans for an execution that will be surgical, accurate, an order meant to cut heads and leave the body still serving. But the Jedi have changed. They are present in the public record, involved in oversight. Some of the clones have served under officers who learned to see troopers as people. Some units build loyalty to leaders who will not simply switch to kill their mentors. And within the Order itself, some Jedi will not run blind into the trap. They will make contingency plans and evacuations. The Purge, if attempted, splinters. In some sectors, it hits with devastating efficiency. In others, it fails because officers refuse the command, or because the signal has been intercepted by people who expected such a thing and jammed it. In some pockets, the Purge is brutal and sharp. Lives and temples burn. In others, it becomes a riot of confusion. No single cinematic genocide crowns a new emperor. Instead, the attempt triggers public outrage, inquiries, and long, bitter reconciliation. The myth of a single darkness swallowing the light does not take shape. Palpatine is exposed as uncomfortably close to the crises. His networks are peeled back. Investigations, press leaks, and Jedi testimony converge. The Senate cannot swallow everything without being eaten alive itself. Padme and Qui-Gon push to put evidence on public record. They demand hearings and subpoenas. Maul is forced to the open like a rat under light. When he strikes, he does not always strike like a puppet. The man who is meant to be a tool becomes a rival. Palpatine's puppeteering is messy, and he miscounts loyalties. The last phase is messy, law and ugly force. Palpatine does not find the clean coronation he wanted. He faces inquiry and charges. He flees into shadows. Some of his allies turn on him to save themselves. The Republic, wounded and raw, begins the slow work of repair with hearings and tribunals rather than a single execution of fate. This timeline does not stitch neatly into a single, tidy epilogue. It fans into several plausible futures depending on choices made next, and all of them are worth imagining. Ending A: reform and renewal. Qui-Gon's reforms win a long, brawling victory. The Jedi codify ethical attachments, accept new oversight, and teach younglings to love with boundaries. The Order becomes less a monastic power than a civic institution, a mediator and a healer as well as a defender. Palpatine is exposed, prosecuted, and while remnants of the old systems persist, a republic of more accountable structures takes root. Balance comes not as a thunder, but as a tedious, stubborn law. Ending B. Schism and Cold War. The Order fractures irreparably. Qui-Gon's faction leaves the temple for independent sanctuaries. Mace's faction refuses to accept attachment. A cold, internecine war between Jedi factions burns quietly for years, and Palpatine, never crushed entirely, exploits the division to rebuild dark networks. The galaxy lurches into long, regional conflicts rather than a single imperial domination. The prophecy grows hollow. Balance is not restored, it is delayed. Ending C. The Broken Purge. The Purge attempt succeeds in pockets and fails in others. Many Jedi fail. The Republic survives but shredded. Palpatine does not become Emperor in a gilded hall, but he becomes a hidden power broken in ruin. Able to pull strings and start wars in the dark, the galaxy becomes a patchwork of satrapies and client states. Quiet resistance takes form past generations. Ending D. The absence of a chosen one. Most important of all, the prophecy loses its shape. While Anakin to bear the strain, the Force's balance is not the result of one man's rise and fall. It becomes the product of cultures, Jedi reform, civic resistance, political vigilance. Those become the instruments of balance. The Force watches, not as judge, but as an environment that responds to what people build. The quiet lessons of a stubborn life. History is full of myth moments. Single figures whose deaths or survival are supposed to rearrange everything. Here, in the hush after a duel and the scream of falling craft, the lesson is different. Qui-Gon's survival does not make the galaxy safe by itself. Anakin's death does not stop war by itself. But both events remove the single axis Palpatine relied on and forced the galaxy to learn what the Jedi never fully taught: how to hold love and duty together, how to legislate compassion, how to resist the hunger of centralized power. The prophecy becomes ambiguous, as prophecies often do. Balance arrives in many small, ugly acts: hearings that refuse secrecy, medics who save stray lives, senators who choose law over fear. It is a balance of politics, patience, and pain, rather than a glorious myth. And that is it for What If Qui-Gon and Maul Lived but Anakin Died. It's a very, multiple divergence what if, a lot of different things can happen. And I decided to not go ahead and, decide on one ending, rather give you guys all endings that I think could happen and that I could have written into the story, because I think all are very interesting and you guys can really decide for yourself what happens, or, look into the history books and see all the possibilities that could have been. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this What If. If you did, make sure to subscribe, as we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. And once we do, me and all my friends are going to do a face reveal on this channel. Like the video, and turn notifications to be notified about the next time I post a Star Wars What If. We do post a Star Wars What If every single Sunday and Thursday every single week. Also, make sure to join our Discord server. The link is in the description. We're trying to expand our community over there. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Of course, make sure to drop a comment. I love reading your guys' comments. And, I love any suggestions. So if you have any suggestions, anything really to comment, then please do drop a comment. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mr. Voz, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Between the pulse of light and shadowed breath, there lies a place where time forgets itself, not bound by what has been, nor what must come, but by the faintest whisper of choice. A single thread pulled and the galaxy bends. Here, destinies twist like sparks in the void. Heroes falter, villains rise. And every path you thought was certain shivers and fractures, revealing the infinite could have beens. Step closer, listen to the silent echoes. Every star you see could burn another way. Every shadow could hide a truth unseen. And in this space, your imagination is the only limit. Welcome to the place where what if reigns.
Hey, you didn't watch it? Well, check out the video on the left side of the screen, which is specifically recommended for you, or check out the playlist on the right of the screen, which contains similar videos to this one, made by me, of course. Hey, remember, subscribe.